Fern Arable lives on a farm. Arable refers to the kind of land where you can grow something, so that's a little clever. Fern, she's got a nature name. And there's a stormy night, and she notices out her window, waking up in the night, that there's a light in the barn. And it's a little bit rainy, but not too bad. She puts on her raincoat to go out and see what's going on. What's happening is her father is tending the sow who's giving birth to little piglets, and they're incredibly cute, and they're nuzzling into their mothers to eat. And he notices that one is not getting a place to eat. There are only so many places, and there are 11 pigs. So he takes the runt, the one is not able to compete for a teat to get something, and goes to get his axe, at which point his daughter enters and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "It's a runt. It won't be okay. He can't feed the bigger ones will get all the food." "Well, if I were little, would you take an axe to me?" He says, "Well, no, that's different. You're a girl." And she begs. This is the compassion story. She begs to take care of the pig. "I'll feed it." He lets her do this as a lesson to how hard it would be, and that this is not some sentimental thing to take on. And it is hard, but she rises to it. She names him Wilbur, and she cares for him. Here is the kindness of strangers. This is grace. This is when someone steps up and just out of the goodness of their heart helps out. She bottle feeds him. She rides him around in a little pram. This is the Edenic part of the story. Things are good for Wilbur. You can tell it's not going to last. Perhaps in early childhood we all have a moment. Perhaps that is the Garden of Eden. And we get to ride around in a pram, and our needs are met. But not for long. She's washing the pig off in the sink, and her daddy comes in and says, "Okay, it's time for the pig to go. It's been a month now. We don't raise hogs here. We birth them, but then we sell them off." "Oh no, oh no, oh no." She is really heartbroken about that. And her mother steps in and says, "Well, your uncle Homer lives nearby here, and he does raise hogs, and he's been looking for a pig to raise. Perhaps instead of selling it to a complete stranger, we sell the little piglet to Homer Zuckerman. Zucker is sweet, sugar, okay? This is a sweet answer to the problem." So she carries Wilbur, this is the leaving home part of the story, nearby to a very pretty farm. We're still in a pretty nice environment. The story is still a happy story, although it is leaving home. And it is, from Wilbur's point of view, a big letdown. He's been cared for, he has friends, he has love, but not in this barn. The barn is community. His first night he says, "Good night, good night." Well, Fern always said good night to him and sort of tucked him in and all. Well, not these. This is the world. The world's kind of cold. Not just this room. By the way, if you think the furnace is not working, we didn't mention it. That's why the windows are open to bring a little air in. This is our experience of nature. Okay, Wilbur's got it worse than we do. Finally, some voice in the dark says, "Is whoever saying good night going to say that all night long? Is good night? Well, good night and salutations, and we'll converse in the morning." He's worried about these words, salutations and converse. He thinks maybe they mean this voice, whoever it is, doesn't really like him, but at least they said good night. In the morning, he's saying, "Who said good night?" And, "Well, I did, salutations." "Who are you? Where are you?" "Up here." And he looks up in the door frame, and it's a spider. Well, the spider is not loved in the barn. Everybody thinks the spider is ugly. The runty pig isn't very welcome, but these are the outsiders. These are the marginal characters in this little community, and they bond. My name is Charlotte, and he thinks she's pretty. The other animals, the horse is deadly. A huge horse is terrified of spiders, and the others just tolerate the spider. Wilbur loves the spider. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. He's affirming really of every creature in the barn. He's a really positive presence here. He is walking compassion. This pig even Templeton, the rat, he sees as a possible ally, and they get along. And the rat says, do you want to play, is what Wilbur says. I don't play, Templeton says. Steve Buscemi was the voice actor who did it, and he's just sarcastic a little bit. I gnaw, I spy, I eat, I hide. I don't play. And that's Templeton. So he's the part of us that is contrary. He's the part of us that says grumpy. Okay, reminds me, he's kind of the transgressive element in the story. We need that. This is the shadow aspect. It reminds me of a New Yorker cartoon. I'm trying to remember it. This woman says, "Well, I used to do things to please my parents, and then for a long time I did things to displease my parents. But I'm in therapy, and now I don't know why I do things." Anyway, this is a happy story at this point. Fern visits almost every day, listens and reads. Summer comes, and life is good. And I've used the story time to tell a little extra, but we've got the main part of the story coming up in a few moments. We're in a farm story, so we're out in nature. So it represents our own physicality, the wisdom of the body. When we have talking animals, it's the nature, the spirit of nature, the sacredness of nature speaking to us in the story. But I have a joke. Okay, so this city fella is out in the countryside. He sees a farmer holding a pig up, eating apples out of a tree. And the city guy watches for a while, and he says to the farmer, "Why don't you just pick a few of the apples and put them on the ground? Maybe you can put them in a box or something for the pig, save time." Farmer looks at him curiously and says, "What's time to a pig?" Now these characters, the cast of characters in the barn, I would take as representing the multitude of agendas and hopes and dreams, the stories going on. We are not singular, we are plural. And some of them are kinder than others. And part of the point today is to think of the compassionate side of ourselves, that energy, and focus on that, bring it forward. Templeton is not that energy. He is self-centered. Okay, we've got that too, and he's interested in eating. That's his primary goal in life, is eating. And Barnyard's pretty good. There are slops and things. He gets his fill, and he thinks about food a lot. It's Templeton that reminds Wilbur what happens to spring pigs. They become Christmas hams. That's pretty much the destiny of the ark. That's about the right timing to get big enough to become a ham. This is the introduction of the awareness of danger and death to Wilbur, who's had a pretty protected life. Charlotte, his friend, Charlotte, who feels such compassion and some kindred energy with Wilbur, says she'll help. She'll watch over him. He gets out at one point. A board is loose in the fence, and he discovers the smokehouse. And Templeton explains what that is for. Now he's in a case of real panic. Actually, Mr. Zuckerman knows how to get a pig back in the pan. Just bring out some food. The hired hand tries to catch the pig. That's not how to do it. Draw the pig toward where you want him to be. Charlotte says, "I'm going to save your life. Here is the voice of compassion." She doesn't have to do that. She's got webs to spin. I think she's what we would call a web designer. Wilbur says, "Should I worry?" And his friend, Charlotte, says, "Of course not. What good would that do?" Good point. When things are difficult, worrying isn't really that helpful. It might be some action to take, but worry in and of itself isn't necessarily helpful. She's a little older, or she's at least wiser. Her lifespan is short compared to a pig, but she seems to have a larger perspective. Comes up with a plan. Lurvy, the hired hand, sees something in the morning that really baffles him. Up there in the spider's web are words, "some pig." We don't know where she came up with the words, but it makes them think about the pig. The Zuckermans, the Arables come over, that is Fern's parents. In fact, I think it's Mrs. Zuckerman who says, "Is it a miracle the cleric is there. He doesn't know if you get miracles like that, but word starts to get around. It's picked up by the local paper. People start coming out to visit to see the amazing words in the web. They're kind of simple words, and it's just a spider web. Crowds get bigger, and Mr. Zuckerman seizes on the opportunity, puts some stands out there, sells some apples, and do a little business. We got some jams, very good there. And for a while, it goes well. Wilbur does his part. When the crowds gather, he blinks his long eyelashes, smiles up at the gathering, and for dramatic emphasis, springs in the air and does a backflip. Okay. I like a story like that. I'm a bit of a ham. Okay, never mind. Okay, then the big deal fades. I mean, people get interested in other things. Charlotte thinks if we're going to save Wilbur's life, I need more words. She gets Templeton to go to the dump and find something. Ah, there, off a box of soap, there's a word, radiant. Puts that up there. Mrs. Arable starts to worry about her daughter, Fern, goes to the doctor. Her daughter seems to think she can hear animals conversing. The doctor says, well, Fern's going through something. It's called a phase, and it's going to pass, unfortunately, because it's kind of a wonderful phase. I like the doctor, and he's the therapist in the story there, and he basically says, calm down, this too will pass. And not all things that pass should go, but anyway. Fall arrives, and Fern sees a flyer for the county fair. Well, there will be prizes. What if Wilbur wins a prize? This makes a difference. This is the introduction of the world. We're going away. Well, first we went away from home to a new place that he made friends, not easily, but his social life is okay. But now we're talking about the big outside world where big things like contests happen. The main prize is a $50 award and a blue ribbon for the best pig. Well, if he's the best pig, then they couldn't kill him, could they? So off to the fair. The Zuckermans put him in a big crate and brag a little about their own place there and go off. Charlotte will come along, even in her condition, which Wilbur doesn't understand. She's kind of weak. She had been more robust before, but the other animals talk about her condition. Well, we know what that is. She's pregnant. She's going through the cycles of life here, not really a good time to go off to another place in a crate with her friend to help out, but that is compassion. She's not thinking about her own well-being. She's thinking about her friend. So this threshold crossing is into something like a ceremonial space. That is, a county fair is a ceremony of sorts. There are rituals like contests. Fern isn't quite as focused on Wilbur as she had been earlier in the story. She's discovered boys. She goes off on a Ferris wheel ride with a classmate. It's pretty much Charlotte. This happens in our life. We have supporters, friends, family. They pass away, they move away, they find other interests, and yet we have love. It just has different channels as time goes on. Fern still loves Wilbur, but she has other interests too. It's Charlotte that overhears Mr. Zuckerman say, well, if the pig doesn't win, he's still worth a good $50 in bacon and ham, so we'll be okay here, because the prize is $50 for the best pig. But Charlotte, hearing that, has a rise of even more compassion. She needs a really, really good word. She needs the perfect word. And Wilbur has to bribe Templeton to go look around and find a word. The word they find is humble. And this is in the fairgrounds, and the crowds come around now, and people come to the fair to see this amazing spider web. Humble. What a word. And yet he's getting attention, but he is a humble pig and doesn't get a big head despite all this attention. But you know, the rules of the contest are usually that the biggest pig wins the prize, and that's what happened in the next pen over. There's this ginormous pig. Templeton says, I think one of his parents must have been a rhino. Anyway, he gets the blue ribbon. All is lost. Fern is distraught. Well, we tried, but it can't be helped. This is farm life. This is life anyway. It doesn't go on forever. And so just then, the fair official in his straw hat shows up. Could you folks come over to the grandstand? We have a special announcement we want to make, and they do, and a big crowd gathers for some sort of a special thing here, and it's a very big crowd, and the fair official stands up and says, well, we've had something extraordinary happen this year. We've had unusually high attendance, mostly due to Mr. Zuckerman's pig here, and so we've come up with a special prize. We've never done this before. We have a governor's medal we're going to give out this one time only, and a cash prize of $100. We're making an exception in the honor of this, and that is what does it. And Mr. Z accepts the award they put it on Wilbur, but he has a few words to say. A lot of you have asked me, he says, how could this have happened? I don't know, but it has happened. In a time when we really don't see many miraculous things. Or maybe we do. Maybe they're all right there around us every day, and we just don't know where to look. So Wilbur gets a medal and seems pleased with himself, and Fern is relieved. But he talks to Charlotte. He's a bit excited. She seems very, very weak. What is it? Are you not well? I'm dying, Wilbur. A barn spider doesn't live long. It's pretty much spring to spring. You can't die. I can, she says, and I will. We are born into this world we live, and when our time comes, we die. It's the natural cycle of life. I've been working on my magnum opus. What's that? My great work. Here it is. It's this ball. What is it? It's my children. There's 512 in there, and they're going to be born, but I will not see that. I won't live that long. They come to life on their own after I'm gone. Now it's Wilbur's turn to feel compassion. He bribes Templeton, and he doesn't have anything else to give Templeton. He comes up with a plan. He says, Templeton, I need some help with Charlotte's magnum opus. And here's what I'll give you. I'll give you first chance at the slops forever. I will wait till you've had what you want, and then I'll eat. Templeton goes for that. What do you need me to do? I need you to use those sharp rat teeth of yours to go up there where Charlotte has hung that ball, and I want you to cut it with your teeth very gently so you don't break it, and then I want you to carry it down to me. What are you going to do? I'm going to carry it back to the farm where Charlotte would have had her babies if she hadn't been helping me. Templeton does it perfectly. Wilbur holds it in his mouth gently on the whole ride home. Now we have the return, and we're back to Homer's farm. That's Homer Zuckerman, so that's a very home-like motif here. And Wilbur tells his tale to all his friends in the barn, and something happens that has not happened ever before. That is, a spring pig lives to see winter. And something more. Christmas dinner comes, and Wilbur is not the ham. In spring, the little ones begin to emerge, and Wilbur is delighted. He knows that Charlotte has died, and Charlotte died alone at the fair. She couldn't make it back, and that was her gift of compassion, because they had to pack up and come back, and she really couldn't make it into the crate. She would have rather died at the farm, surrounded by her friends, at least near Wilbur, but that wasn't possible. She saved Wilbur's life, but had this sacrifice to make. But Wilbur's very delighted that her children, they're here. Tiny spiders, new friends, lots and lots and lots of new friends. It really helps him. But then they start to fly away. They make these little silk kind of parachute-like things that can catch the slightest breeze. They're very, very light. Don't leave, don't. And then he hears a familiar word, salutations. And he looks up. 3 of the little ones have decided to stay. We like it here, they say. We like you too. And they begin to weave their webs. Wilbur looks up where they've chosen to make their homes, and he said, "You've chosen a hallowed doorway in which to spin your webs." It's where Charlotte spun hers. And he has more friends than before. So, in an ordinary barn, an ordinary pig, a runt no less, stood surrounded by friends, welcoming his second spring. And that spring was followed by many, many more. All because someone felt the compassion to see the grace and beauty and nobility of the humblest of creatures. And that's the story. There are many mythic parallels. Charlotte reminds me of the Navajo tales of Spider Woman who controls the elements with her web. There are stories in Africa, creation myths. There's Ariadne in Greek mythology, spins the guiding thread that makes it possible to escape the labyrinth. This idea of spiders as guides, as wisdom figures, is universal. Spider stories hold up. I mean, they have legs. The story was first published in 1952. It's now been loved by generations of children. Elaine told me about telling this story, reading it with her daughter, who loved the story and decided to be a vegetarian. Until she just, Yeah, excuse me, I didn't say it clearly. Yes, her daughter, Toby, who decided to become a vegetarian after reading this moving story, which held up for a little while until she discovered that bacon was not on a vegetarian diet, and that was the end of that. So E.B. White, a wonderful writer who came up with this yarn, responded to a young reader once, because he got all kinds of notes and letters and questions, and he said, "In real life, a spider doesn't spin words in her web. But real life is only one kind of life. There is also the life of the imagination." So what do we have here? Well, Wilbur is our vulnerability. Charlotte is the part of us that needs compassion and is able to give compassion if we identify with Charlotte. And the posters for the movie version that I've used images from have a catchphrase, "Help comes from above." There is a sort of a spiritual implication to this thing. We all need help, and we are all made better when we can give help. Action steps. Forgive ourselves. Forgive ourselves for everything, because everything's our fault, right? Depending on how your neurosis works. Forgive reality for just simply being, for things like death and disappointment. We have to live in this world, and this world is complicated and sometimes breaks our heart. Grasp that most people have reasons for what they do. Their actions were not meant to hurt or disrespect or upset us. They're just living their lives. So, namaste, blessed be, and so it goes. P.S. I have a postscript, and I intentionally wanted to hold it in a space outside the sermon. We've had a big week. I want us to think about compassion for those we do not agree with politically. That there are rational, good, patriotic people that want the best for their country, and they just see things differently. That's a challenge at this moment in history. We have our piece of truth, not the whole final truth. Those who are activists need to hang in there. This is a time of calling. We are, if we did not prevail politically, immediately the loyal opposition. It's not a time to quit or go away, it's time to roll up our sleeves. The last words I have to say is, this too will pass.